Hey guys, and welcome to my channel and to this video. Today we will be painting another beautiful spring painting with a bee and a beautiful flower. And I did make my sketch earlier that is available for you to download from my website, and also trace it onto watercolor paper using graphite paper. Right now with this artist eraser, I'm just picking up the excess graphite. I will be also using a masking fluid to mask in the bee, the wings of the bee and the body of the bee. And for that, I'm using Winsor & Newton masking fluid for watercolors, and also this applicator to add some masking fluid, and then on top spread it with a palette knife. And if you learn a little bit more about how I use masking fluid, I will put the link down in the description box. And right now here you can find a link for the video about the masking fluid. And I did painted this a while ago, so I did not upload it. I'm not sure why. Maybe because I was just waiting for the spring. I was doing all that winter's paintings, so I decided to leave it for warmer days and for the spring. I'm also adding, as you can see with that applicator, a couple of thinner lines onto the flower where the lines are on the flower, just to add those veins in a white, to leave them white at the end. And now that this dried completely, you have to leave a masking fluid to dry completely, and when you touch it, it has to be a little bit sticky, so then you know it is completely, and rubbery like, and then you know it is completely dry. And then you can paint on top, and don't paint while it is still wet. So I started with pre-wetting the paper, and I pre-wetted all around the center of the flower. And then with a mix of ultramarine, Mother Lake Red Light, and just a little bit of indigo, I'm painting in the first layer, just around the center of the flower. And with my strokes, I'm just minding the shape of the flower, painting in the strokes, painting in the lines, in the shape of the petals. Now with a mix again of indigo and Mother Lake Red Light, but this time a lot more indigo, I'm painting in the edges of the flower, in the lower part, and also some of the parts in the petals of the flowers. And I'm just again doing my strokes in the shape of the petals, following that shape of the petals, picking up a little bit of the paint, but I do want my highlights to be. Now I'm pre-wetting the center part, and the part around it, the petals are almost dry. And if yours didn't dry completely, just leave it to dry, or dry it with a hair dryer and move on to painting the center. And from the center, I'm using mix of raw sienna and cadmium yellow medium, and this larger round brush. This is, I think, number 12 brush, quite larger brush, round, to paint in the center. And also I left some parts a little bit lighter, especially on top, and left side and lower side I painted a little bit darker. Then painting in those are some central petals, a little bit smaller, like maybe baby petals, and then painting them with again Mother Lake Red Light and a little bit of ultramarine. Just adding a little bit more details also here and there on my petals, a little bit of that violet mixture, pink mixture, and a little bit of indigo on the sides, on the edges of the petals. And just do as many layers as you like and add as much pigment as you like. I'm just looking how my paint dries. If it's too light for me, then I add a little bit more of the paint. And if I find it is dark enough, I will stop. So just look at how your painting looks, how your color looks. and then add on top one more layer or not. Just decide whether you like it or not. Now I've picked up a burnt sienna directly from the palette, and I'm painting in the darkest part of my center, that is the lower part, and now going slightly onto the right, and then adding a couple of sprinkles again in the same burnt sienna for some little bit more of the details to that part of the flower. All the materials I'm using are listed down in the description box, so you can go ahead and check it out if you want to learn a little bit more about the supplies I use for this painting. Darkest shadows, darkest parts of the petals are also just nearest to the center, and as you can see, I'm using a little bit darker colors and a little bit more on the lower side and a little bit lighter on the upper side, where I also painted my center a little bit lighter. This is Sepia, just to add the darkest shadows just nearest to the edge of my center of the flower and petals, and again in that part that I did paint earlier, also the darkest. A little bit of white gouache, and now the petals are completely dry, and I'm adding just a little bit of white gouache on the parts that I did use a masking fluid for, and I do want around, when I remove the masking fluid, I do want that part to be a little bit lighter around it, so that those white lines that don't pop so much. That is the reason why I'm adding a little bit of white gouache around it. For here you can also use white watercolors. If you don't have a white gouache, white watercolors will do. I'm using quite watered down white gouache, so as I said, when it dries it won't be so visible, but just it will add a little bit more of the shine around those white parts that I used masking fluid for. Now with this smaller script brush, I'm painting in some lines, some details again around those parts that are masked with the masking fluid, and just adding again a little bit of the details, a little bit of the texture, just to make the distinction again between the petals. For that, I am again using a little bit darker mixture of Mother Lake Red Light, Ultramarine, and a little bit of Indigo. And you can see straight away when adding those darker colors how the shapes emerge and how that flower comes to life, and how you can see those shadows around the center and how the center pops up. And that is the point. We do want that center to be quite vibrant and to pop out of the painting, and when we're at the end paint our bee, it will just really stand out. And I'm using here a dry brush technique, just painting with wet on dry. I did not pre-wet the paper. I don't want the smudges. I do want those lines to be harsher. And now with again mixture of raw sienna and cadmium yellow medium, I'm adding a little bit more of the details to the center during the vertical lines, doing some splatters, some dots, just to make that part a little bit more textured. And now picking up the masking fluid, and my masking fluid, this one was quite old, so it was very sticky, and I could barely remove it. So just keep that in mind. Your masking fluid can also get old and you can have troubles removing it. That could also cause your paper to rip. Just keep that in mind and, well, try to use it. You don't buy masking fluid and just leave it to stay. Just try to use it and within as short as possible time, so that the same thing that happened to me doesn't happen to you, and at the end you will have to, well, I think, throw away that masking fluid. I think I did that. I throw it away. It's just no use to put it on my paper and just rip the entire paper. And these are cotton watercolor papers, so they're costly themselves, and just ripping it with masking fluid, well, it's not worth it. And now that all dried, I'm using some neutral black to paint in the bee. And as you can see, I painted her head, her little feet, and her body. And I did not paint it in one even wash. I just left a little part a little bit lighter. So that part is where those little hairs are gonna be, so I left it a little bit lighter. Now I've mixed in some cadmium red light with, again, a little bit of that neutral black to paint in that red part of the bee, and also to add some distinction to those parts that I left white. I do not want it to be white, so I've added a little bit of cadmium yellow medium. Now I'm painting in the wings of the bee using cadmium yellow medium, and again, for that purple part, I'm using the mixture that I used for my petals. A little bit of burnt sienna again for some details on the wings. And I will not paint the wings entirely. I will leave some parts lighter to maybe look as though they are slightly transparent. Now picking up the rest of the masking fluid and the parts where I left it white for the petals, and I didn't really go over it. I just used a little bit of same color, a little bit of that violet color to go over those parts. And, well, my camera stopped, so you cannot see that, but I did not really paint it. As you can see, those parts stayed white. Just added a light wash of that violet color on top to blend it in with the petals. And now with detail brush, I'm in the white gouache, I'm adding some hairs to my bee. And going back and forward, also adding a little bit of the black. It got lost in all that white gouache, so I decided to add a little bit of that black. And now a little bit more of the final details. If you see that fit, add a little bit more of the indigo and Mother Lake red light mix on the bottom part to make it even darker and to make that center pop even more. And with that, I'll be finishing off this painting and of course this video. Thank you guys a lot for watching, for all your support. I really do appreciate that a lot. And if you do like this video, please hit the like button, share it, comment. If you haven't still, please do subscribe to my channel. That really mean a lot to me. Maybe consider joining my channel. That would also mean very, very much to me. And again, thank you so much for watching and I hope I'll see you next time. Bye!